Corporal Jake Martinez wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked through the armory tent at Forward Operating Base Alpha in Afghanistan. The desert heat was unbearable even at dawn. He had been assigned to check the weapons inventory, a routine task that usually bored him to tears. But today would be different. As Jake moved between the weapon racks, he noticed a figure sitting alone in the corner. A woman in military fatigues was hunched over an M82 Barrett sniper rifle, her hands moving with practiced precision as she examined the weapon. Her uniform was dusty and worn, suggesting she had just returned from a mission. The woman looked up as Jake approached. Her eyes were sharp and focused, the kind of eyes that had seen too much. She appeared to be in her late 20s with short brown hair tucked under her helmet. What caught Jake's attention immediately was the collection of medals pinned to her chest, more than he had ever seen on someone so young. "Having trouble with that rifle, Sergeant?" Jake asked, reading her rank from the stripes on her sleeve. She nodded grimly. "The firing pin is jammed. Third time this week. These weapons weren't meant for this much sand and heat." Her voice was calm but carried a weight that made Jake pay attention. Jake had worked with weapons for 3 years, but he had never seen anyone handle a Barrett with such familiarity. The M82 was a massive 50 caliber sniper rifle, weighing nearly 30 pounds when loaded. Most soldiers struggled just to carry it properly, but she held it like it was an extension of herself. "I'm Jake, by the way. Corporal Martinez," he said, extending his hand. "Sergeant Elena Rodriguez," she replied, shaking his hand firmly. Her grip was strong, calloused from years of handling weapons. Jake's curiosity got the better of him. "Mind if I take a look at that medal?" He pointed to a distinctive silver medal among the others on her chest. Elena glanced down at the medal, then back at Jake. For a moment, she seemed to debate whether to answer. Finally, she unclipped the medal and handed it to him. Jake's eyes widened as he read the engraving. The medal was heavier than he expected, made of solid silver with intricate detailing, but it was the number etched into the back that made his breath catch in his throat. 305. "What does this number mean?" Jake asked, though deep down he already suspected the answer. Elena took the medal back and clipped it to her uniform. "Each number represents a confirmed kill. Every enemy combatant eliminated through sniper fire." Her voice was matter-of-fact, as if she was discussing the weather. Jake stared at her in disbelief. 305 confirmed kills was an almost impossible number. The most famous snipers in military history rarely reached half that count. Yet here was this young woman sitting casually in front of him, carrying proof of what seemed like a legendary career. "How long have you been deployed?" Jake managed to ask. "This is my 4th tour. Been here on and off for 6 years, Elena replied. She turned her attention back to the jammed rifle, clearly uncomfortable with the attention her medal had drawn. Jake watched as she expertly disassembled part of the rifle mechanism. Her movements were fluid and confident, showing years of experience. Every motion was purposeful, wasting no time or energy. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Jake asked. Elena paused in her work. "My father taught me when I was 8. He was a Marine sniper in the Gulf War. Said I had a natural talent for it." She smiled slightly, the first time Jake had seen any warmth in her expression. As Elena continued working on the rifle, Jake noticed the small details that told her story. Her hands bore numerous small scars, likely from shrapnel and rough handling of weapons. Her uniform had been repaired multiple times, showing patches and restitching that spoke of countless missions. The tent flap opened, and another soldier entered. "Rodriguez, we need you for briefing in 10 minutes, he called out. "Copy that," Elena replied without looking up from her work. Jake realized he was witnessing something extraordinary. This wasn't just any soldier. This was one of the most lethal snipers in the entire military. The fact that she was working on her own weapon showed her dedication to her craft. "The briefing, is it for another mission?" Jake asked. Elena nodded as she reassembled the rifle components. "Always another mission. Taliban forces have been moving through the valley. Intelligence suggests they're planning something big." She tested the rifle's action, satisfied that the jam had been cleared. Jake watched as Elena stood and shouldered the massive rifle with ease. The weapon that would exhaust most soldiers seemed weightless in her hands. "Stay safe out there, Sergeant," Jake said sincerely. Elena paused at the tent entrance and looked back. "In this job, Corporal, safety is about precision. Every shot has to count, because hesitation gets people killed." With that, she disappeared into the morning light. Jake stood alone in the armory, still processing what he had witnessed. He had just met a living legend, someone whose skills had saved countless American lives. The number 305 kept echoing in his mind, each digit representing a story of survival, strategy, and split-second decisions made under impossible pressure. 2 hours after meeting Elena Rodriguez, Corporal Jake Martinez found himself assigned to the same mission convoy. Command had decided they needed extra logistics support, and Jake's mechanical skills might prove useful if any vehicles broke down in the harsh terrain. The convoy consisted of 4 armored vehicles heading toward the Kunar Valley, where intelligence had detected unusual Taliban movement. Elena rode in the lead vehicle with the mission commander, Major Thompson, while Jake was positioned in the rear vehicle with the communications equipment. As they drove through the winding mountain roads, Jake could see Elena through the bulletproof windows of the lead vehicle. She sat motionless, her rifle propped beside her, studying maps and terrain photos. Even in the cramped confines of the armored vehicle, she maintained the stillness of a professional hunter. The radio crackled to life. "Command, this is Thunder 1. We're approaching the observation point. Visibility is good, but we're seeing movement in the ridgeline about 2 clicks north," Major Thompson's voice reported. Jake watched through his periscope as the convoy stopped at a rocky outcrop that provided a commanding view of the valley below. The landscape was brutal. Jagged rocks, steep cliffs, and countless hiding spots where enemy forces could conceal themselves. Elena emerged from the lead vehicle carrying her M82 and a heavy equipment pack. Jake was amazed at how she moved across the rough terrain. Despite carrying nearly 60 pounds of gear, she had the smooth, efficient movement of someone who had done this hundreds of times before. The team established a temporary observation post behind a cluster of large boulders. Elena immediately began setting up her rifle position, using a specialized bipod and calculating wind direction and distance to potential targets. "Sergeant Rodriguez, what's your assessment?" Major Thompson asked through his binoculars. Elena scanned the valley through her rifle scope for several minutes before responding. "Sir, I count at least 15 individuals moving in tactical formation along the southern ridge. They're carrying AK-47s and what appears to be rocket-propelled grenades. Distance is approximately 800 meters. Jake listened in amazement. He could barely see any movement in the valley, even with binoculars. Yet Elena was providing detailed intelligence about enemy weapons and numbers. "Can you engage from this position?" the major asked. Elena made minute adjustments to her rifle scope and checked her equipment one more time. "Affirmative, sir. Wind is steady from the northeast at about 8 miles per hour. Range is within optimal parameters for the M82. What happened next would stay with Jake for the rest of his life." Elena settled into her shooting position with the calm precision of a master craftsman. Her breathing became deep and regular, and her entire body seemed to enter a state of perfect stillness. Through the radio, they heard reports from other observation posts. "Thunder 2, we're seeing movement on the western slope. Looks like they're trying to flank our position. Thunder 3 here. Multiple targets moving through the ravine. They're definitely coordinating an attack." Elena's voice cut through the chatter with professional calm. "Command, I have a clear shot on what appears to be the group leader. He's carrying communications equipment and directing the others' movement. Take the shot when ready, Sergeant," Major Thompson authorized. Jake held his breath as Elena made her final calculations. The target was nearly half a mile away, a distance that would challenge even the most experienced marksman. Wind, elevation, temperature, and countless other factors had to be considered in the split second before pulling the trigger. The M82 fired with a thunderous crack that echoed across the entire valley. Through his binoculars, Jake saw one of the distant figures suddenly collapse. The other Taliban fighters immediately scattered, their coordinated advance dissolving into chaos. "Target down," Elena reported quietly, already scanning for her next shot. Within the next 20 minutes, Elena fired 6 more times. Each shot was deliberate and precise, targeting enemy fighters who posed the greatest threat to American positions. Jake watched in amazement as her calm demeanor never changed, even as bullets began to impact the rocks around their position. "How does she stay so calm?" Jake whispered to the communications operator beside him. "That's why she has 305 confirmed kills," the operator replied. "She's been doing this longer than most of us have been in the military." The firefight lasted for another hour, with Elena providing overwatch for ground units moving through the valley. Her accurate shooting prevented the Taliban from establishing any strong defensive positions, allowing the American forces to complete their mission with minimal casualties. As the convoy prepared to return to base, Jake noticed Elena cleaning her rifle with the same methodical precision she had shown during the engagement. Every component was carefully inspected and maintained. That was incredible shooting out there, Jake told her. Elena looked up from her rifle. Each shot potentially saves American lives. That's what keeps me focused. She paused, then added, "The medal you saw earlier, those aren't just numbers to me. Each one represents a threat eliminated, a family back home that stays safe." Jake began to understand that Elena's extraordinary skill wasn't just about marksmanship. It was about the weight of responsibility she carried, knowing that her precision and decision-making in critical moments could determine who lived and who died. The convoy returned to base as the sun set over the Afghan mountains. Jake realized he had witnessed something beyond ordinary military service. He had seen a true professional at work, someone who had turned warfare into a precise art form dedicated to protecting others. 3 days after the Valley mission, Jake Martinez was working in the base motor pool when alarms began blaring across forward operating base Alpha. The loudspeaker crackled with urgent commands. "All personnel to defensive positions. We have incoming enemy forces from multiple directions." Jake grabbed his rifle and ran toward his assigned position on the base perimeter. As he moved through the chaos of soldiers preparing for battle, he caught sight of Elena Rodriguez sprinting toward the guard tower with her M82 rifle and equipment pack. The tower was the highest point on the base, offering a panoramic view of the surrounding terrain. Elena climbed the ladder with remarkable speed despite carrying her heavy gear. Jake could see her through the tower windows as she set up her shooting position. The base communications officer's voice echoed through speakers. "We have approximately 40 Taliban fighters approaching from 3 different directions. They appear to be coordinating a simultaneous attack on our defensive positions." From his position behind sandbags, Jake could see muzzle flashes in the distance as enemy forces began their assault. The distinctive crack of AK-47 rifles mixed with the deeper thunder of American M4 carbines as the firefight intensified. Elena's voice came over the radio, calm and professional despite the chaos around them. "Command, this is Overwatch. I have visual on enemy positions. Requesting permission to engage." "Permission granted, Overwatch. You are cleared to fire," came the immediate response. Jake watched the guard tower as Elena began her work. Even from his position several hundred yards away, he could see her methodical approach. She would scan through her scope, make adjustments to her rifle, then fire with devastating precision. The M82's distinctive report echoed across the base every few minutes, each shot followed by reports from ground units. "Enemy sniper eliminated. RPG team neutralized. Command element down." But the most incredible moment came when Jake heard Elena's voice over the radio again, this time with unusual urgency. "Command, I have eyes on a suicide bomber approaching the main gate. Distance is approximately 1,200 meters. He's carrying what appears to be a vehicle-borne explosive device." 1,200 meters was an extraordinary distance for any sniper shot, even with the powerful M82 rifle. Jake knew from his weapons training that such a shot would require perfect calculation of wind, elevation, and countless other variables. Overwatch, that's beyond normal engagement range. "Can you make the shot?" Major Thompson's voice crackled through the radio. Elena's response was immediate and confident. "Affirmative, Command. I have a clear line of sight. Wind is steady and lighting conditions are optimal." Jake found himself holding his breath as he watched the guard tower. Through his binoculars, he could barely make out the distant vehicle Elena was targeting. It appeared as just a small speck moving along the desert road toward their base. "All units, take cover. Overwatch is engaging long-range target," came the warning over the radio. The seconds stretched like hours as Elena made her final calculations. Jake imagined her going through the mental checklist he had seen her use before. Wind speed and direction, target speed and trajectory, bullet drop over the extreme distance, even the rotation of the Earth at such a long range. The M82 fired with its characteristic thunderous boom. Jake trained his binoculars on the distant road, trying to see the result of the shot. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then suddenly, A massive explosion lit up the horizon as the vehicle-borne explosive device detonated harmlessly in the middle of the empty road. The radio erupted with amazed voices. Unbelievable shot. Target eliminated at 1,200 meters. The entire vehicle just disappeared. Jake stared at the guard tower in amazement. Elena had just made what was arguably one of the longest successful sniper shots in combat history, preventing a massive explosion that could have killed dozens of American soldiers. The battle continued for another 2 hours, but Elena's elimination of the suicide bomber had broken the backbone of the Taliban attack. Without their planned massive explosion to breach the base defenses, the enemy forces found themselves unable to sustain their assault against the prepared American positions. As the gunfire finally died down and the all-clear signal was given, Jake made his way to the guard tower. He found Elena carefully disassembling her rifle for cleaning and maintenance, just as she had done after every previous engagement. That shot at 1,200 meters, how did you even see the target at that distance? Jake asked. Elena looked up from her rifle cleaning. Years of practice and understanding your equipment. The M82 is capable of accurate fire well beyond 1,000 meters if you know how to use it properly. She paused, then added, but mostly it's about accepting the responsibility. When you know that missing means your fellow soldiers might die, you find a way to make the shot. Jake watched as Elena methodically cleaned each component of her rifle. Her attention to detail was absolute. Every part was inspected, cleaned, and verified before being reassembled. How many confirmed kills does that make now? Jake asked quietly. Elena was silent for a moment, then replied, 312. 7 more today. Her voice carried no pride or satisfaction, just the factual reporting of a professional doing her job. As they climbed down from the guard tower, Jake realized he had witnessed something that would become legend in military circles. Elena Rodriguez had not only demonstrated extraordinary marksmanship skills but had prevented what could have been a catastrophic attack on their base. The other soldiers who had witnessed the long-range shot looked at Elena with a mixture of awe and respect as she walked past. She had saved lives that day through skill, training, and an unwavering commitment to protecting her fellow soldiers. The evening after Elena's extraordinary 1,200-meter shot, Jake Martinez found her sitting alone outside the base communications tent, writing in a worn leather journal. The Afghan sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, but Elena seemed focused entirely on her writing. Mind if I sit? Jake asked, approaching with 2 cups of coffee from the mess tent. Elena looked up and nodded, accepting the coffee gratefully. Thanks. Been meaning to catch up on my mission reports. She closed the journal and tucked it into her cargo pocket. Jake settled beside her on the wooden bench that someone had constructed from spare lumber. That shot today, I've never seen anything like it. Where did you learn to shoot like that? Elena was quiet for a long moment, sipping her coffee and staring at the distant mountains. Finally, she began to speak. My father, Sergeant First Class Miguel Rodriguez, was a Marine scout sniper during the Gulf War. He came home with stories that most fathers don't tell their 8-year-old daughters. She paused, seeming to gather her memories. Dad had nightmares. He would wake up in the middle of the night sweating and calling out names. Mom tried to help, but she didn't understand what he had been through over there. Jake listened intently as Elena continued. One weekend when I was about 10, Dad took me to a shooting range outside our hometown in Texas. He said he needed to teach me something important about responsibility and precision. Elena's voice took on a softer tone as she remembered. He started me with a small .22 caliber rifle, teaching me the fundamentals. Breathing, sight alignment, trigger control, but more than that, he taught me that every shot has consequences. He made me understand that a weapon is a tool that demands respect and absolute precision. By the time I was 12, I was out-hooting most of the adults at the local shooting competitions. Dad said I had a natural gift, but he never let me get arrogant about it. He always reminded me that skill without discipline is worthless. Jake was fascinated by this glimpse into Elena's background. When did you decide to join the military? Elena's expression grew more serious. Dad was killed in a car accident when I was 16. Before he died, he made me promise that if I ever decided to serve, I would use my skills to protect other people's children, other people's families. She touched the metal on her chest unconsciously. Every confirmed kill on this medal represents that promise kept. After high school, I enlisted in the Army and requested sniper training. The instructors were skeptical at first, not many women in that field. But when I consistently outshot everyone else in the program, they started paying attention. Elena stood up and walked to the edge of the base perimeter, looking out at the terrain where she had made her incredible shot earlier that day. My first deployment was to Iraq in 2018. I was nervous, scared that I might freeze up when it really mattered. "What happened on your first mission?" Jake asked, joining her at the perimeter fence. "We were providing overwatch for a convoy moving through a dangerous section of highway. Intelligence said there were IED emplacements and possible ambush points along the route." Elena's voice became matter-of-fact, the tone of a professional recounting operational details. "I spotted movement in a building about 600 meters from the convoy route. Through my scope, I could see a man with an RPG positioning himself to attack our vehicles. There were American soldiers in those trucks, kids not much older than I was." Elena paused, her hands gripping the fence. "I remember my father's voice in my head. Every shot has consequences, mija. Make sure you're ready to live with them." I took the shot. The man with the RPG went down and the convoy passed safely. That night I called my mother and told her about it. She cried, but she said Dad would have been proud. Jake was beginning to understand the weight that Elena carried. Each of those 312 confirmed kills represented a moment of life or death decision-making, a split second where her skill and training determined who would live and who would die. "Over the years, I've saved convoys, protected bases, eliminated high-value targets," Elena continued. "But I've also seen good soldiers die because I couldn't get into position fast enough, or because the shot was impossible due to weather or terrain. The hardest part isn't the shooting," she added quietly. "It's living with the responsibility, knowing that your decisions affect whether someone's son or daughter comes home." Elena turned to face Jake. "That medal you saw with 305 kills? Each number represents a choice I made to prioritize American lives over enemy lives. I've never taken a shot in anger, never killed someone for revenge. Every single engagement was about protecting my fellow soldiers." As they walked back toward the base buildings, Elena shared more details about her extensive training. She had attended multiple advanced sniper schools, studied ballistics and meteorology, and spent countless hours practicing in every possible weather condition and terrain type. "The military doesn't just teach you to shoot," she explained. "They teach you to think like a hunter, to understand your environment, to predict how weather and terrain will affect your shots. Most importantly, they teach you when not to shoot." Jake realized that Elena's extraordinary skill wasn't just about natural talent or good training. It was about a deep sense of responsibility and purpose that drove her to perfect her craft. She had turned herself into a precision instrument of protection, dedicating her life to keeping other soldiers safe. "Do you ever think about what you'll do after the military?" Jake asked. Elena smiled slightly. "My father always said that once you become a protector, you never really stop being one. I figure I'll find ways to keep serving, maybe training the next generation of snipers." She looked back at the guard tower where she had made her incredible shot. There's always going to be a need for people willing to take on this responsibility. 5 days after learning about Elena's background, Jake Martinez was awakened at Oro 300 hours by urgent alarms throughout forward operating base Alpha. Emergency lights bathed the camp in red as soldiers rushed to their assigned positions. Jake quickly dressed and reported to the command center, where he found Major Thompson briefing a team of elite soldiers. "We have a downed helicopter approximately 15 kilometers northeast of our position," Major Thompson announced grimly. "The bird went down during a routine patrol mission. We've confirmed 4 survivors, but they're trapped in hostile territory with enemy forces converging on their location." Jake noticed Elena Rodriguez among the soldiers receiving the briefing. She stood with her M82 rifle in full combat gear, ready for immediate deployment. Her face showed the focused intensity he had come to recognize before dangerous missions. "The extraction team will consist of 12 soldiers in 3 vehicles," the major continued. "Sergeant Rodriguez will provide sniper overwatch from elevated positions along the route. Intelligence indicates heavy Taliban presence in the area, including possible anti-aircraft weapons." Elena stepped forward. Sir, what's the timeline for enemy forces reaching the crash site? Best estimates put hostile forces within 2 hours of the survivor's position. We need to move fast and hit hard, Major Thompson replied. Jake found himself assigned to the mission as a communications specialist and backup mechanic. His job would be to maintain radio contact with base command and ensure the vehicles stayed operational during the challenging terrain they would encounter. The rescue convoy departed the base under cover of darkness, using night vision equipment to navigate the treacherous mountain roads without headlights. Elena rode in the lead vehicle, constantly scanning the surrounding terrain through specialized optics that could detect heat signatures and movement in complete darkness. As they approached the crash site area, Elena's voice came over the radio. Command, this is Overwatch. I'm seeing multiple heat signatures moving toward the survivor location. Count approximately 25 enemy combatants, moving in 3 separate groups. Copy, Overwatch. What's your assessment of their timeline? Elena paused, calculating distances and movement speeds. At their current pace, they'll reach the survivors in approximately 45 minutes. We need to establish a defensive perimeter immediately. The convoy stopped at a rocky outcrop that provided both cover and elevation advantage. Elena quickly established her shooting position while the rest of the team prepared for the extraction operation. Through his radio equipment, Jake could hear the desperate transmissions from the helicopter survivors. Mayday, mayday. This is Fallen Angel. We have injured personnel and limited ammunition. Enemy forces are getting closer. Elena's calm voice cut through the tension. Fallen Angel, this is Overwatch. Help is on the way. We're going to keep the bad guys away from you until extraction arrives. What followed was perhaps the most intense firefight Jake had ever witnessed. Elena systematically engaged enemy forces as they tried to approach the crash site, her shots echoing across the valley with deadly precision. Target down Northeast Ridge, Elena reported after each shot. Multiple combatants neutralized western approach. Her voice remained steady and professional despite the chaos erupting around them. Jake watched through his night vision equipment as Elena's accurate fire prevented enemy forces from establishing any positions near the survivors. Every time Taliban fighters tried to advance, Elena's shots forced them to retreat or eliminated them entirely. Overwatch, we're seeing movement in the ravine below the crash site, called one of the extraction team members. Elena adjusted her position and scanned the area. I see them. 3 combatants with RPGs approximately 400 meters from the survivors. She made quick calculations and fired 3 times in rapid succession. Threats eliminated. The rescue operation lasted nearly 3 hours, with Elena providing continuous overwatch as ground teams reached the helicopter and evacuated the injured crew members. Her shooting was so accurate and consistent that enemy forces eventually abandoned their attempts to reach the crash site. All survivors extracted safely, came the final report. Returning to base. As the convoy headed home, Jake realized he had witnessed Elena's skills at their most crucial. She had not only eliminated multiple threats, but had done so while protecting both the helicopter survivors and the rescue team. How many confirmed kills tonight? Jake asked Elena during the return journey. Elena was cleaning her rifle in the dim light of the vehicle. 18 confirmed, several others wounded but not confirmed as fatalities. She paused in her maintenance routine. The important thing is that all 4 helicopter crew members are going home to their families. Jake watched Elena's methodical approach to equipment maintenance even after the exhausting mission. Her dedication to her craft extended beyond just shooting. She understood that properly maintained equipment could mean the difference between life and death. That was incredible shooting in those conditions, Jake observed. Darkness, moving targets, wind gusts from the valley. Elena looked up from her rifle. When people are counting on you, you find ways to make the impossible shots. Training prepares you for the technique, but protecting your fellow soldiers gives you the motivation to exceed your own limitations. As they approached the base, Jake calculated that Elena's confirmed kill count had now reached 330. Each number represented another threat eliminated, another American life protected through her extraordinary skill and dedication. The helicopter crew members were waiting at the base medical facility when the convoy returned. As Elena passed by, one of the injured pilots called out to her, "Sergeant Rodriguez, I wanted to thank you. We could hear your shots keeping those guys away from us. You saved our lives tonight." Elena nodded respectfully. "Just doing my job, sir. Glad you're all making it home safe." Jake realized that for Elena, this wasn't about personal glory or recognition. It was about the sacred responsibility she carried to protect other soldiers, a promise she had made to her father and renewed with every mission. 2 weeks after the successful helicopter rescue mission, intelligence reports began indicating a massive Taliban offensive planned against forward operating base Alpha. Jake Martinez noticed increased activity around the base as soldiers prepared defensive positions and checked equipment with unusual urgency. Elena Rodriguez had been working almost continuously, providing sniper support for multiple patrol missions, while enemy forces probed the base perimeter. Jake could see the exhaustion in her eyes, though her professional demeanor never wavered. "This is going to be the big one," Elena told Jake as they sat in the mess tent, sharing what might be their last quiet meal for days. "Intelligence says they're planning to hit us with everything they have: mortars, RPGs, possibly even captured American vehicles loaded with explosives." Major Thompson's voice echoed through the base loudspeakers. "All personnel report to defensive positions. We have confirmed enemy movement from multiple directions. This appears to be a coordinated assault on our position." Elena stood immediately, shouldering her M82 rifle and equipment pack. "Jake, you'll be in the command bunker with communications. I'll be moving between the guard towers wherever the threat is heaviest." As Jake ran toward the command center, he could see Elena climbing the main guard tower with remarkable speed, despite her heavy gear. The base's defensive systems came online: floodlights, automated sensors, and heavy machine gun positions. The attack began at sunset with a barrage of mortar rounds impacting around the base perimeter. Jake crouched in the reinforced command bunker, monitoring radio communications as reports poured in from all sections of the base. "We have movement on the northern ridge," reported one observation post. "Count approximately 50 combatants with heavy weapons. Eastern perimeter shows multiple vehicles approaching. Possible car bombs," came another urgent transmission. Elena's voice cut through the radio chatter with calm authority. "Command, this is Overwatch. I have visual on the primary assault force. They're using the northern ravine to approach our weakest defensive section." From the command bunker, Jake could hear the distinctive crack of Elena's M82 rifle firing repeatedly from different positions around the base. She was moving constantly, appearing wherever the threat was greatest. "Overwatch has neutralized the mortar team on the eastern ridge," Elena reported, moving to engage RPG teams approaching from the south. The battle intensified over the next several hours as wave after wave of enemy fighters attempted to breach the base defenses. Elena's accurate shooting disrupted every coordinated attack, forcing enemy forces to abandon their strategic positions. "Command, I'm seeing something unusual." Elena's voice came over the radio with a note of concern. "Large vehicle approaching from the northwest, moving faster than normal. Appears to be heavily loaded." Jake watched the tactical display as Elena described a truck moving directly toward the base's main gate at high speed. Intelligence had warned about vehicle-borne explosive devices, and this appeared to be exactly that threat. "Distance to target?" Major Thompson asked urgently. 800 meters and closing fast," Elena replied. "I need a clear shot, but the angle from the guard tower isn't optimal." Jake watched through the command center's periscope as Elena rappelled down from the guard tower and sprinted across the base compound toward a better shooting position. Enemy bullets kicked up dust around her feet as she moved. "Overwatch, you're taking fire. Fall back to cover," came the worried command. "Negative, command. This vehicle will breach our main defenses if it reaches the gate. I need to take this shot," Elena replied, her voice showing strain as she ran. Elena reached a concrete barrier about 400 meters from the approaching truck. She dropped into a prone shooting position, quickly adjusting her rifle for the extreme shot under combat conditions. "Vehicle is now 600 meters out and accelerating," Elena reported breathlessly. "I have one chance at this." Jake held his breath as he watched through binoculars. The truck was moving at tremendous speed, weaving slightly to avoid defensive fire from the base's automated weapon systems. Elena would need to calculate not just distance and wind, but the vehicle's speed and direction changes. The M82 rifle fired with its characteristic thunderous report. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the massive truck suddenly veered off course, its front tires blown out by Elena's precise shot. The vehicle rolled multiple times before exploding in a massive fireball more than 200 meters from the base perimeter. Target neutralized, Elena reported calmly, though Jake could hear her heavy breathing over the radio. Truck bomb eliminated before reaching defensive perimeter. The explosion had been so massive that it created a crater visible even from the command bunker. Jake realized that Elena had just prevented what could have been catastrophic damage to the base and massive casualties among the defending soldiers. The Taliban assault continued through the night, but Elena's elimination of the truck bomb had broken their main offensive capability. Without the massive explosion to breach the base defenses, enemy forces found themselves unable to sustain their attack against the prepared American positions. As dawn broke over the Afghan mountains, the sounds of gunfire gradually diminished. Enemy forces began withdrawing, leaving behind equipment and casualties across the battlefield. All units cease fire. Enemy forces are withdrawing, came the command from Major Thompson. Jake emerged from the command bunker to find Elena sitting exhausted against a concrete barrier, methodically cleaning her rifle despite her obvious fatigue. Her uniform was torn and dusty from hours of combat, and there was a small bandage on her left arm where shrapnel had grazed her. "Are you okay?" Jake asked, approaching with a bottle of water. Elena accepted the water gratefully. "Just a scratch. Nothing that won't heal." She continued her rifle maintenance with the same dedication she had shown throughout her deployment. "How many casualties on our side?" 3 wounded, none fatal, Jake reported. "Medical says everyone will recover fully." Elena nodded with visible relief. "Good, that's what matters." She paused in her cleaning routine. "Jake, can you help me with something?" "Of course." "What do you need?" Elena reached into her pocket and pulled out a small notebook. "I keep track of confirmed kills for official reports. Last night was intensive. I need to make sure my count is accurate." Jake watched as Elena flipped through pages of meticulous records. Each entry included date, time, distance, weather conditions, and tactical situation. Her record-keeping was as precise as her shooting. "By my count, last night was 43 confirmed eliminations," Elena said quietly. "That brings my total to 373. Jake stared at her in amazement. In a single night of combat, Elena had eliminated more enemy combatants than most soldiers would encounter in an entire deployment. Yet she spoke about it with the same professional detachment she used for routine equipment maintenance. The truck bomb shot, that was incredible. "The target was moving at high speed and you were taking enemy fire," Jake observed. Elena looked up from her notebook. "When you know that missing means your friends die, you find ways to make shots that should be impossible. Training gives you the skills, but protecting people you care about gives you the motivation to exceed those skills." As they sat together in the morning light, Jake noticed other soldiers approaching Elena to thank her personally. Word had spread throughout the base about her actions during the night assault, particularly the destruction of the vehicle bomb that could have killed dozens of soldiers. "Sergeant Rodriguez," called out Private Johnson, a young soldier from the communications unit. "I wanted to thank you. My squad was positioned right behind the main gate. If that truck had made it through..." Elena stood and shook the young soldier's hand. "You would have done the same thing in my position, Private. We all look out for each other here." Over the next hour, a steady stream of soldiers approached Elena with similar thanks. Jake watched her handle each interaction with the same humility and professionalism, never seeking credit or recognition for her extraordinary actions. Major Thompson approached carrying a folder of official documents. "Sergeant Rodriguez, I need to inform you that your actions last night are being recommended for the Distinguished Service Cross. The truck bomb elimination alone saved countless American lives." Elena accepted the news with quiet dignity. "Thank you, sir. I was just doing my job." "Sergeant, what you did last night went far beyond just doing your job," Major Thompson replied. 43 confirmed kills in a single engagement, including the prevention of a catastrophic vehicle bomb attack. Your actions will be studied in military academies for years to come." As Major Thompson walked away, Elena turned to Jake. "You know what the real victory is? Everyone in our unit goes home. Every soldier on this base gets to see their family again. That's worth more than any medal." Jake realized that Elena's extraordinary kill count wasn't about personal achievement or military glory. Each number represented a calculated decision to prioritize American lives over enemy lives, a responsibility she carried with unwavering dedication. "What happens now?" Jake asked. "Are you staying for another deployment?" Elena was quiet for a moment, looking out at the Afghan landscape that had been her battlefield for so many years. "This was my final tour. I'm rotating back to the States next month to become a sniper instructor. Time to pass on what I've learned to the next generation." Jake felt a mixture of respect and sadness. Elena Rodriguez had become a legend during his deployment, someone whose skills and dedication had saved countless lives. Knowing that her active combat career was ending felt like the end of any 6 months after returning from Afghanistan. Corporal Jake Martinez received an unexpected phone call while working at his new assignment at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The voice on the other end was familiar and professional. "Jake, this is Elena Rodriguez. I hope you remember me from Forward Operating Base Alpha." Jake smiled broadly. "Of course I remember you, Sergeant. How could I forget? How are you adjusting to life back in the States?" "Actually, that's why I'm calling," Elena replied. "I'm now an instructor at the Army Sniper School here at Fort Benning, Georgia. I have a favor to ask you." Elena explained that she was developing a new training program for military snipers, incorporating lessons learned from her combat experience in Afghanistan. She wanted Jake to help document the tactical situations they had encountered together, providing detailed accounts that could be used to train future snipers. 2 weeks later, Jake found himself driving through the gates of Fort Benning, one of the Army's premier training facilities. The sniper school was located in a remote section of the base, surrounded by vast training ranges and specialized facilities. Elena met him at the school headquarters, and Jake was struck by how different she looked in her instructor uniform. The combat fatigue and constant alertness had been replaced by a calm confidence and obvious satisfaction with her new role. "Welcome to the U.S. Army Sniper School," Elena said, shaking Jake's hand warmly. "I want you to meet some people and see what we're doing here." She led Jake through the facility, showing him classrooms filled with advanced ballistics computers, weather monitoring equipment, and detailed terrain models. The precision and attention to detail reminded Jake of Elena's meticulous approach to her combat missions. "We're training the next generation of military snipers," Elena explained as they walked through the facility. "These soldiers will deploy to combat zones around the world, and the skills they learn here could determine whether they and their fellow soldiers come home safely." In one classroom, Jake watched Elena teaching a group of 20 students about long-range shooting fundamentals. Her instruction was clear, detailed, and emphasized the same principles Jake had seen her apply in Afghanistan: precision, responsibility, and unwavering focus on protecting other soldiers. "Every shot you take in combat has consequences that extend far beyond the immediate target," Elena told her students. "You're not just eliminating a threat, you're protecting convoys, securing bases, and ensuring that American families don't receive devastating phone calls." Jake noticed that Elena's teaching style incorporated real combat examples without glorifying violence. She emphasized the weight of responsibility that came with their extraordinary skills, just as her father had taught her years earlier. After the class, Elena introduced Jake to Colonel Williams, the commander of the sniper school. "Colonel, this is Corporal Martinez. He served with me in Afghanistan and witnessed many of the tactical situations I've been incorporating into our new curriculum." Colonel Williams shook Jake's hand enthusiastically. "Corporal, Sergeant Rodriguez has told me about your deployments together. Her combat record is simply extraordinary. 373 confirmed kills across 4 deployments, including some of the longest-range shots documented in modern warfare." Over the next several hours, Jake and Elena worked together to document the tactical situations they had encountered in Afghanistan. Elena's memory for detail was remarkable. She could recall wind conditions, target distances, and tactical considerations from engagements that had occurred months earlier. "The truck bomb incident," Elena said as they reviewed their notes. "That's become a case study we use to teach students about engaging moving targets under extreme pressure. The shot required calculating vehicle speed, bullet trajectory, and the consequences of missing, all while taking enemy fire." Jake watched Elena's students practicing on the range, using the same methodical approach he had observed in combat. Each shot was carefully planned and executed, with detailed analysis of results and constant refinement of technique. "How many students go through the program?" Jake asked. We graduate about 60 snipers per year, Elena replied. Each one represents months of intensive training and evaluation. The standards are extremely high because we know these soldiers will face life or death situations where precision is everything. Elena showed Jake her personal office, where the walls were lined with commendations, photographs from her deployments, and letters from soldiers whose lives she had saved. The Distinguished Service Cross she had received for her actions during the base assault held a place of honor, but Jake noticed it was surrounded by thank you letters that seemed to mean more to her. This letter is from the helicopter pilot we rescued, Elena said, pointing to a framed document. He wrote to tell me his daughter was born 3 months after we got him out of that crash site. Says he named her Elena in my honor. Jake realized that Elena's legacy extended far beyond her extraordinary kill count. She had saved dozens of American lives through her combat actions, and now she was multiplying that impact by training other snipers who would carry on her mission of protection. Do you miss the action? Jake asked. Elena was quiet for a moment, looking out at the training ranges where her students were practicing. I missed the sense of immediate purpose, knowing that my actions directly protected my fellow soldiers. But this is important too. Every sniper I trained properly could save multiple American lives during their deployment. As Jake prepared to leave Fort Benning, Elena walked him to his car. Jake, I want you to know that having someone witness what we did over there, someone who understood the responsibility we carried, that meant a lot to me. Thank you for letting me be part of your story, Jake replied. What you accomplished in Afghanistan will be remembered long after we're both gone. Elena smiled. The real accomplishment wasn't the number of confirmed kills or the medals. It was that soldiers like you came home safely to your families. That's the legacy I hope to leave. 6 months later, Jake received a package in the mail from Elena. Inside was a photograph of her latest graduating class of snipers, along with a note. 24 new protectors heading out to keep American soldiers safe. The mission continues. Jake kept the photograph on his desk as a reminder of Sergeant Elena Rodriguez, a soldier whose extraordinary skills and unwavering dedication had redefined what it meant to serve with honor. Her legacy lived on through every sniper she trained, every life saved by her students, and every family that would remain whole because of the precision and responsibility she had passed on to the next generation of American warriors. Ray.